Hi everybody, today is Thursday, October 13, 2022. It was a wild day in the markets today. Today I'm just going to talk about workspaces and my particular interpretation of the best moving averages to use and how to color them and so on. Moving averages are like fishing spots. I mean, everyone's got their favorites, and with good reason, I'm sure. I'm not saying that mine are the absolute best. I'm just saying this is what works for me. And let me explain why I'm doing what I'm doing. I've done a lot of R&D these last few years. I mean, a lot of R&D. And one thing that I noticed is that no matter what time frame I was on or what tick frame I was on, the 50 EMA was typically always a very powerful player. So if I was using 2000 tick or 6000 tick or 1 minute or 3 minute or 10 minute, whatever, the 50 EMA always seemed to be just a heavyweight in the field of moving averages. So what I've decided to do as an experiment, and it seems to be working out pretty well, is I said, okay, let's just focus on the 50. So if we're going to use the 50 on the 1 minute, then that becomes the 25 on the 2 minute and so on. The 50 on the 2 minute is now the 100, on the 1 minute. So I basically just duplicated mathematically everything relative to the 50. And it gives you something like this. I've also used rainbow coloration just to keep the order in mind. So a rainbow is red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. So here I'm using a 12 or 15 EMA, very, very light gray. You can probably barely see it. The orange on the 2 minute is 50 EMA. So over here it becomes the 100. And then over here it becomes the 20. Right, if you work out mathematically. The 50 EMA on the 5 minute chart is in yellow. So that over here on the 2 minute is now 125. And on the 1 minute, it is 250, right? Double. So that's how I'm choosing which EMAs to use and why I'm using these particular colors. So if I'm eyeballing, say right after when the bell rang pretty, well, 11 o'clock in the morning, all of a sudden price really took off and it had reclaimed the 50 EMA here on the 5 minute chart. So it hit it, hit it, hit it, hit it. All of a sudden it just pushed above. Once it pushed above, it just took off like a rocket. So on this 50 EMA, so when I'm watching the 2 minute chart, I know which 50 EMA it is that it's going to be on the 5 minute chart because it's reclaimed the yellow moving average here. Same thing here on the 1 minute. I can tell what's going on at a higher time frame because of the coloration is symmetrical. So on the 1 minute, I have a bounce here off the 50 EMA. And if I'm looking at the 2 minute chart, because I can only look at one chart at a time, I'm slow, I can tell that it's bouncing off the 1 minute 50 EMA. And if I'm over here looking at the 5 minute chart, I can tell it's bouncing off the 1 minute 50 EMA. Boom, boom, boom. So they're all in sync. And a little bit later, we see that price bounced off the orange, which is the 50 EMA at 2 minute. So again, the 50 EMA for a particular chart, I just put in a weight of 5. Everything else is a weight of, well, these are 2. This teeny weeny little gray thing is just a 1. So I know what the 50 EMA here is. It's the orange one, right? So this is what happened over here at 1 minute. And then if we look over here at the 5 minute, we see these beautiful curls, right? Curl around the 50 EMA at 1 minute, beautiful curl around the 50 EMA at 2 minutes. And again, once it passed that 50 EMA at 5 minutes, it shot up. So very important lines, as was evidenced today. And I'm keeping coloration symmetrical across time frames so that I have an immediate understanding of what's happening regardless of which chart I'm looking at. Not a huge set of ideas. Not rocket science by any means, but I just did want to explain which moving averages I'm using, why, how I've colored them, and why. Now, there's a few other little things I do want to say. Oh, before I move on, here's a 5 minute chart in a bigger scale, and it's just beautiful to watch, right? It just hit it. Once it reclaimed that 50 EMA, it just shot up. Beautiful bounce here off the 1 minute 50 EMA, and a beautiful curl and bounce here off the 2 minute 50 EMA. Just beautiful stuff. Nice slope, lots of air, just wonderful, wonderful day. Now, I've been using 50 EMA for the 1 minute for years. I'm going to guess 4 years, maybe even 5 years now. A real tentpole in my trading. But these last few days, I've made a little bit of a change, which is this is not the 50 EMA. It's actually the 60 EMA. I don't use wicks with my candles. These are Heikin-Ashi candles. These ones here on the left are colored according to RSI. I don't use wicks. And I just found that maybe because I'm not taking the wick difference into account, but the 60 EMA just seems to hug the curve better. So it hugs it nicely here. And this is not actually the 25, it's the 30, which again hugged it very nicely there. So a wrinkle. I've changed the 50 EMA on the 1 minute chart to 60, and that's rippled it out through all the higher time frames. So I just wanted to be transparent about that. The last thing I just wanted to point out again is how beautiful this. I play color shifts. So my candles are colored according to RSI. I have my own unique settings. And look at this, gray, got a pullback. When's the pullback over? Here, it went back to green. Go long. Up she went. Went to gray, went into red. Back to gray, back to green. Once it went back to green, go long. Up she goes. Just a nice, beautiful, easy visual signal along with what I call a fat W, right? You just call it like that. Badoink, badoink. Same thing here, like that. Once it broke that trend line, up she went. I just really love this RSI coloration, and I just wanted to highlight that. And just before I go, I do want to talk about the cues. So again, in the morning, right, this is the bottom, started up this way. So we placed 100% here. We placed the 75%, we dropped that right where the first major hump. Again, not a scientific term, but I do love to see where resistance becomes support. That's a very nice indication. So 100% here, put the 75% here, and we see this beautiful little buzziness around the golden pocket. It shot up to the next one, major Q, reclaimed it here, up she went. Had difficulty reclaiming this major Q, but it finally did, went above, came back down, Santa candle, right, the result of a retest, and up she shot. Came down, kind of hugged that minor Q for a little bit, went up, next major Q, kind of lost it, came down, then of course it's kind of just the end of the day. So I do love how the cues, help map out the day. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful day. Woohoo!